Hey guys, how you doing? I'm Matt Gear and you're watching Matt Gear TV. Today's video is going to be part 2 of my demo of my amplifier, which is a Mesa Boogie Rectifier Roadster. Part 1 went up a little while ago, and in part 1 I showed you channel 1 and channel 2, which are the two lower gain channels. Today I'm going to show you channels 3 and channels 4, which are the higher gain channels. And I know you're going to love that because there's a lot of great tones ranging from bluesy to rocky stuff all the way up to full thrash metal. So just to recap on the first video, if you've not seen that, the Roadster is a 4-channel amplifier, 3 modes per channel. It's got 2 power settings per channel as well. You can switch it from 50 to 100 watts. And it has one enormous foot switch with which you can switch channels, you can switch the effects loop on and off, you can switch reverb, solo volume as well, which gives you a volume boost, and also a tuner mute switch as well. Today, as I said, I'm going to show you channels 3 and channels 4. 3 and 4 are very similar in terms of the way that they're set up, but channel 4 has got a lot more gain. Now, to help demonstrate that, basically for channel 3, I'm going to be playing my American Deluxe Strat with 3 single coil pickups. When I switch on to channel 4, I'm going to switch to Betty, which is my black Strat, which has got some much higher output humbuckers in. So basically you can see that regardless of the sort of music that you're trying to play, there is a sound that you'll be able to find in this amp that's going to work for you. So it's not all about thrash metal or djent or anything like that. You can go from, as we've seen, channel 1 and 2, very clear, very clean sounds, all the way through to super high gain stuff with channel 4. So let's have a look at channel 3 to start off with. Channel 3 and channel 4 both have the same modes on, and they're raw, vintage and modern. To start off with, we're going to have a look at the raw mode on channel 3, which pretty much picks up where the higher gain setting on channel 2 left off, but then goes right further up into some higher gain sounds. Here's just an open chord so you can hear what it sounds like. So you can hear that that's got a little bit of dirt on it. And if I just roll the volume off a little bit, it cleans up really well, which is a great feature of valve amplifiers. So one other thing that I should say is at the moment I'm running this in 50 watts. So the difference between the 50 watts and the 100 watts isn't as much as you might think it would be in terms of volume. Yes, with the 100 watts you do get a little bit more volume, but with the 50 watt, although it's a slightly softer sound, you basically get a little bit more breakup on it because it is less headroom on that particular setting. One other thing to say is that there's 2 power settings that you can run the amp on. There's bold and there's spongy. At the moment I've got the amp set on spongy, and what that does is basically decreases the voltage throughout the circuitry in the amplifier. What that means is you get again a slightly lower volume than you do with bold setting, but also a slightly saggier, springier sound to it as well. So for something like single coils, when you're playing a Strat or maybe a Telecaster, you get a really vintage sound out of it, which is absolutely fantastic. So that was the raw setting. Now I'm going to switch to the vintage, and I'm just going to play a chord first of all. So that's the raw mode. And let's have a switch onto vintage so you can hear the difference between the 2 settings. that's the same chord using the vintage setting, and actually I've had to turn down the input on my microphone, basically because it's redlining it. So where we were before, the setup for the raw channel is actually too sensitive now for the vintage. So like I said, I had to turn everything down a little. Now, as with the raw channel, you've got a great deal of control on this with the volume knob. A little bit of breakup, but actually if I roll the tone and the volume back a little bit, I can soften up the sound and get a really clear, clean sound, so that I can play my one and only jazz chord progression. Jazz hands! Thank you very much. Now obviously if you were playing that sort of music, well, you might not be buying the Mesa in the first place, but if you did have it, you'd be using channel 1 or channel 2 and the lower gain settings. But it's just to show you the versatility of these higher gain channels when you start using the volume control on your guitar, and so you can see the level of control that you can have over the sound of the amp, even though that you are using a very high gain sound. Here's another example of that with one of my songs called Wounded. So with just a little twist of the volume knob, I've gone from quite a clean sound, although slightly softer obviously because you're backing the volume up. So it won't be as bright a clean sound as you get if you just ran the channel 1 or channel 2. But roll the volume up. Here's another example of channel 3 with the volume just rolled back a little bit, just to drop that gain ever so slightly. In terms of the EQ that I'm using, basically I've got everything pretty much at 12 o'clock on this, and obviously there's a great deal of variation that you can have. You've got a master volume per channel and a gain per channel as well, so even within each of those settings that you have, you've got a huge amount of control on the sound that you get out. John Mayer. So that's vintage mode on channel 3. Now there is a modern mode on channel 3 as well, but I'm not going to show you that with this Strat. I'm going to show you that on channel 4, because as a higher gain setting it's probably not the sort of thing that you would be playing a guitar like this. It's probably the sort of thing that you'll be playing with humbuckers, so you can really make the most of that higher gain. So that's all for channel 3. Let's have a look at channel 4 now with Betty, my black Strat with bare knuckle pickups. Okay, so now I've switched on to channel 4, which is the highest gain channel on the amp. In common with channel 3, it's got the same 3 modes, raw, vintage and modern. But unlike channel 3, they're all at a higher gain setting. So if you switch between channel 3 and 4, all things being equal, channel 4 is going to have a lot more gain than channel 3. One other thing that I've done is I've changed the power setting on the front of the amp from spongy to bold. So what that's doing is it's making a slightly more modern sound as well. So the spongy is quite sort of brown, quite saggy, quite vintage, great with a single coil guitar like the Strat that I was playing before. But now that I've got Betty plugged in with the humbuckers, I want something a little bit tighter. So this is going to increase the volume slightly as well. So let's check it out. This is channel 4 in raw mode. Homage to Seattle there for you. Gotta love Pearl Jam and Soundgarden. So that's the raw channel. You can hear it's not got the super high saturation of the other channels. But it's got a really nice bit of crunch, so probably for rhythm playing, that's going to be a really great sound to use. So I'm going to switch now onto vintage, which you'll hear a big increase in volume as well. I might actually have to turn it down slightly so I don't max out my inputs and so that my neighbours don't call the police as well. So you can immediately hear it's a much higher output than the raw setting. This is actually the setting that I use the most on the amp because I find that modern's just a little bit too much. This has got a great range of gain from quite soft settings to really high gain. So let's check this out. So as you can see, there's a massive amount of gain available for you there, and there's one more channel to come with even higher gain setting than that. Just for reference, I've got the gain at about 2 o'clock on this. I've got the treble kicked up slightly as well, but everything else again is pretty much at 12 o'clock. So there's again a huge amount of variation that you can get in the sound with the 3-band EQ, master gain and presence setting for each of the channels. So last but not least is channel 4, and this is an absolute bruiser of a channel. Huge amounts of gain. You can hear that the sort of voicing of the channel compared to vintage, it's quite a lot brighter and it's certainly a lot more aggressive. So So there you have it, Mesa Boogie Rectifier Roadster amp. 4 channels, 3 modes per channel, 2 other things and lots of cool stuff. I kind of did some sums and figured out that actually cutting the EQ out and the tweaking that you can make with the EQ, if you multiply up all of the different variations between channels, modes, power outputs and all that sort of stuff, there are 96 different settings that you can have on this amp. You then think about different guitars that you're going to put in, the control that you have with your volume, the EQ that you can get. Clearly there's a huge range of stuff that this amp can do for you, and you can go from, as we've seen, really low gain, sparkly clean, all the way through to super high gain stuff for you fans of djent and metal and thrash and all that sort of stuff. Whether you need 96 different modes and different ways of playing, 96 different sounds from your amp, is debatable really. I guess it's one of those amps that if you're a session player or you play in a couple of different bands, or you're just interested in experimenting with lots of different sounds, then it's a great amp to have, because you know you can spend years and years playing around with this and probably still only scratch the surface of the sounds that you'll be able to get out of it. So I hope that's been interesting. I've been Matt Gear, this has been Matt Gear TV. The amp has been Mesa Boogie Rectifier Roadster, which I hope you'll agree is a great bit of kit. If you've got any questions or comments, just leave them below. Do subscribe to my channel and check back soon, because there'll be lots more gear reviews, demos, lessons and other cool stuff. So until then, you guys take it easy, keep playing, keep practicing, and I will see you all next time. Cheers.